Rabbi Jason A. Miller from Michigan, who will talk about the Brad Ausmus hiring as the manager of the Detroit Tigers. Don't miss this. This is Lewis Live on TLV1. Back here in Lewis Live on TLV1. Thanks for staying with us. Tune in to us again next Thursday, November 28th. It's the Hanukkah Bowl. Judean Rebels versus the Jerusalem Kings, 8:30 p.m. Israel time. Going to be great stuff. Want to listen to me on that. We're now talk baseball. Baseball in the United States, Major League Baseball, with a rabbi who is very prominent in the Michigan area. And we've had discussions in the past via Facebook about the Brad Ausmus sighting. And that guest, of course, is Rabbi Jason A. Miller. Rabbi Miller, welcome to Lewis Live on TLV1.
Thanks so much. Great to be with you.
So where to begin? You're a businessman, a rabbi, and a sports fan. And Brad Ausmus, of course, signed with the Tigers a couple weeks ago. We had him on last week. Appreciate Brad's time. Before we get to Brad's impact, you correct me on something which I think is very important for people to know. Brad Ausmus is not the only Jewish manager in the major leagues. Tell us a bit about that.
Brad Ausmus is not the only Jewish manager in the American League either. Of course, Bob Melvin is Jewish. Like Brad Ausmus, they both have a Jewish mother, making them both halachically Jewish. And another thing that they have in common is they were both catchers for the Detroit Tigers.
Wow.
Brad Ausmus, of course, during 2 stints with the Tigers.
Now, that I should know because Bob Melvin used to manage my Diamondbacks. 2007, they went to the NLCS Manager of the Year, so I should have known that. So I do correct myself, everyone listening, that Brad Ausmus is not the only Jewish manager, as you said, not only Major League, American League as well. Now, let's talk about his impact on the Detroit Jewish community, because a lot of kids out there, Jewish kids, might think I can't make it in athletics, or it's not for me, it's not a Jewish thing. Here's a guy in Brad Ausmus who had a long career in the majors, an all-star appearance. Now he's a manager. How does that make an impact on the kids in Detroit and Michigan Michigan in general?
You know, what's interesting is a lot of these, professional athletes who are Jewish, for many of them, they didn't grow up with their Judaism, worn on their sleeve. It didn't really factor predominantly in their upbringing or in their background. And once they make it into the professional level, especially with Major League Baseball players I've seen, all of a sudden they recognize that whether they like it or not, they're going to become Jewish role models.
Right.
And I think for the most part, these athletes handle it pretty well, sort of shifting. And some of them are very honest. Brad Ausmus did a great interview for a book that's coming out, in which he said, Judaism was really not part of his life growing up. His mother's Jewish, his father's Protestant. They did have a Christmas tree in the home. The only time they ever observed any Jewish holidays was really Hanukkah with his mother's family. So he's very upfront about that. He's married to a Catholic woman. They have 2 children, and he is not raising them Jewish. But I also think that he recognizes that as a Jewish man with a very nice and thriving Jewish community here in Detroit, he's going to be called upon to talk about his Judaism, to represent the Tigers and the Tigers Foundation for Jewish causes. And quite frankly, I think he's going to do that in a very positive, meaningful way.
And Brad was on last week, and I said, how does it feel that you're Jewish manager? What does that mean? And he said, well, if other people like that, if they're inspired by that, great. So he did acknowledge that part, and he did manage the Israel team last year in the WBC qualifier. So are you of the opinion that if he's called him on to speak at synagogues, Jewish community centers, that he's going to take that role and embrace it, or will he be like some celebrities and say, I'm too busy? What do you think he'll do?
Well, I think if he says he's too busy, it's genuine. Managing a Major League Baseball club, really doesn't afford you the luxury of doing the synagogue circuit or, going to a lot of JCCs. What I will tell you is that I happen to have grown up with the founder and the director of the Tigers Foundation, and they're really the ones who organize these speaking events. I happened to be at an event with Jim Leland and the majority of his coaching staff last January. About 11 months ago, 10 months ago, at the Holocaust Memorial Center,
Wow.
which is actually the nation's first freestanding Holocaust memorial, and that's right here in Metro Detroit. And cynically, some people might say that event happened as a result of Delman Young's anti-Semitic outburst in New York City, and that's certainly possible. But what I saw was a very nice presentation made by Dave Dombrowski, who, of course, is the GM and CEO of the Tigers, and Leland and some of his coaches. And so I think we'll see some things like that where Brad Ausmus, I can't tell you he's going to be going to different synagogues around town, but, I could certainly see him being honored by the Jewish Community Center. I'm on the board of the Michigan Jewish Sports Foundation, so I can certainly see him making some appearances at some of our events. We are in charge of the local Jewish Sports Hall of Fame, and certainly Brad Ausmus will be in consideration, for induction into that, very auspicious group. Certainly, if he manages to stick around here in Detroit for some time and find some success.
We're speaking with Rabbi Jason Miller here on Lewis Live on TLV1. A few more minutes with you, Rabbi. Now, the Tigers had a great team. Actually, past few years really have had some solid teams. Went to the World Series, went to the ALCS this last year. If the Tigers win the World Series, I mean, does it mean anything different? Will people say a Jewish manager won, or will that kind of go under the radar because people know Brad Ausmus more as a baseball player than a Jew? So talk about the possibility that it really could happen to the Tigers winning the World Series, and then what that means for the Jewish community in Michigan.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. I was having this conversation with a fellow Tigers fan at a local synagogue right after the announcement that Brad Ausmus was being hired, and I thought that this guy summed it up very well. He made reference to the African-American comedian Wanda Sykes, who, after Barack Obama was elected president, she, in her stand-up routine, said, this is just wonderful for the African-American community, and we're so proud to have the first black president. And then she said, but of course, if he screws up, we're going to remind everyone that his mother's white. So this guy said to me, it's great that the Tigers have hired the first, the team's first Jewish manager, and this is just such a moment of pride for the Jewish community. However, if he screws up, we're going to remind everyone that his father's Protestant.
Right. There you go. Wow. That's a great way to sum it up.
It's one of those things. People often, remark that it really doesn't make sense that the Jewish community makes a big deal about Jewish athletes, Jewish managers, things like that. No one ever talked about Jim Leland's, Christian religion or heritage. But it's unusual. I mean, we are a very small percentage of the United States population. The Jewish people are.
Right.
And when you factor in that most professional athletes are from the Dominican Republic or from Latin America, it's unusual to see a Jewish baseball player at the major league level. So we do make a big deal out of it, so much so that we're even willing to go against our own definition of who's a Jew in order to do so. So, there like myself, there are many conservative rabbis who, from a halachic, from a Jewish legal perspective, wouldn't consider someone like Ryan Braun to be Jewish because, of course, his father's Jewish, but his mother's not.
Right.
So he's only Jewish on a patrilineal level. And yet he considers himself Jewish. He goes by the Hebrew Hammer. And as I always say to people, I wouldn't give him an aliyah in my shul, but for the sake of Major League Baseball, I'm happy to say that Braun is a baseball player, and we got to take the good with the bad. So even when he's dishonest and makes some colossal mistakes with PEDs, we can't all of a sudden say he's not a Jewish baseball player.
All right, we have to run real quick, Rabbi. If you could just say your website, just so people can look, because then we have to go. Please say it real quick. People check it out.
No problem. You can check out my blog at blog.rabbijason.com. Follow me on Twitter at Rabbi Jason, and of course my website www.rabbijason.com. It was a pleasure. Thanks so much.
Thank you. All right, folks, on the other side, Yosef Saar. This is Lewis Live on TLV1. It's Christian Luba here on Lewis Live on TLV1. Stay tuned for another musical interlude. And on the other side,